A fresh week here on Mets Daily. It's maybe the last day we could say Happy New Year before the statute of limitations is up on that. We welcome on to the program to open up the week, friend of the program, Ernest Dove. Go subscribe now to his YouTube, and he's all locked in on prospects. He just put out a video on Mets top prospects by position, so make sure you go watch that right now. Ernest, Happy New Year. Welcome back to the show. Let's go, baby.
Happy New Year, man. Any year is a good year to talk about the prospects, so I'm happy to kick things off in the right direction on your show, of course.
You know, they're all here right now, but, you know, we're still awaiting the inevitable trade. We're waiting for the inevitable signing. Over the weekend, Okamoto goes to the Blue Jays for 4 years, $60 million. You know, the Mets never seem to be in on him, really, but, again, not a bad number, but another case of, is 4 years just too much for what the Mets are liking right now? Before we get into the prospects, I want to talk about a name that everyone in the Mets world is talking about, and that's Kyle Tucker. And whether it's worth giving him the bag, whether it's worth a long-term deal, is it worth a 3-year deal with a high AAV? You know, you look at some of the numbers, the metrics. Jorge Polanco's numbers pretty much matched his in a couple different categories in 2025. Are you in the King Tuck camp? Like, is that the bat you look at in what's kind of a weak free agent class when you look at maybe like a Bellinger and Tucker as the two head honchos on the offensive side of the ball that are left? Are you on the King Tuck train?
I mean, I'm not really sure, to be honest. I do feel like maybe I was more on the Bellinger train of sorts, either way between the two, but I would still worry about both. I mean, they're really high quality players. I'm not going to joke around with that. But again, even like you're maybe alluding to, like, are these Juan Sotos of free agency? Like, what are some of the numbers? Bellinger has had a few years here and there in Major League Baseball that were really bad. Tucker has been okay, really good, amazing, maybe good. So when you get into the 9-figure deals that these guys want, everyone's going to argue that, like, cheap Stearns, he should just do it anyway because of Cohen. I get that, but I was more thinking Bellinger for a couple of reasons. Maybe really good outfielder defensively, the old run prevention thing. The avenue to utilize first base was interesting, maybe pre-Polanco, though. But so some of the versions of versatility with Bellinger made me happy. But now I'm just stuck with the rumors. Like, is either one going to get the 6-7 years? If the Yankees are reportedly putting in more than one offer, which sounds funny, like, well, who else has put in one, rather than the Yankees doing their second? Are they outbidding themselves? The Mets, are they a high AAV short-term deal team? I mean, it looks like it under Stearns, but I obviously would be happy with either one. My thought process, even prospect-wise, I do feel Carson Benge, the top hitting prospect on the Mets, can handle center field. So if the end result is getting one of these 2-star bats and having Carson Benge take the other spot one way or the other, I'm happy. Does it need to be 3 years versus 5? Not my money, of course. I don't care. A lot of fans agree. But I guess I do kind of prefer Bellinger, maybe for a couple of reasons that I've stated.
Yeah, I like the fact that he can play first because I keep mentioning on this show, Ernest, is that you can't have Jorge Polanco be the only first baseman on the roster. Like, Mark Vientos, I assume, is going to get traded. We'll talk about him. But if he's not, he is not a first baseman. We've seen him play first. I know Polanco's not either, but Vientos is just, I mean, he's dreadful defensively at first base that I just don't want to see that, nor do I think the Mets will try it out again because the games he has played there, he's not good, and he's not very agile. His feet, he's one of the slowest guys in baseball. So I think they have to add another first baseman. Ryan Clifford, I don't think is ready yet, and I want to talk with you about him in a little bit. I just don't think this year is the year. I think 2027 is the year of Ryan Clifford potentially at first base maybe for the Mets. But Benge is on my list, of course, because that's the name of the offseason internally for the Mets. You know, he is a Stearns guy. Stearns drafted him. That's his first draft, was picking Carson Benge. So, obviously, he wants it his way. And I'm not on this. You mentioned stingy Stearns. Like, I'm giving him a shot. Like, and I think a lot of Met fans are emotional right now because of the guys that they liked are gone. But you have to respect the cojones on David Stearns to put together his roster. If it doesn't work, he'll get canned, whether it's next offseason, the offseason after that. If it works, he's going to look like a genius and maybe the boy genius that everyone wants to comment. what they call them. I want to start with that because I want to react to you saying what is your approach? What is your thoughts on David Stearns, the approach, the stingy Stearns comments, the boy genius comments? Give me your overall take on David Stearns.
Okay, I mean, first and foremost, I don't want to just say he's great, he's amazing, and then have everybody yell at me later in your comments on your show. So, but I do love the idea of David Stearns. I love the idea of the stability of the front office for all the fans that are upset, wanting him fired already. Who is replacing him? And are we really doing this again? Because we've had what, about 4 of them in the last 5 years? Let's go ahead and have a version of stability. But some of the things behind the scenes that I'm trying to reel in from the prospect minor league perspective quietly since Stearns took over. I don't know to give him full credit. Since Stearns took over, a lot of the stuff in player development down in the minor leagues, and when I mean AAA to the Dominican Summer League, 16-year-old kids in the DSL, they're actually training and learning a different plate discipline approach with the aggressive barreling and all that. It's going from bottom to top, and this is something being done under Stearns, and it looks like a lot of these things, even pitching related, coming into 2025, they changed over a lot of guys' arsenals. Everybody loves Nolan McLean, right? Stearns didn't draft him. Guess what he did do? He altered everybody's arsenals, including McLean, with player development from some of the coaching staff that have been around since Stearns began. So I like the player development aspect. I like the resources aspect. Some of the drafting obviously has gone really well. But again, he's also helping to develop the players. This farm system about a year and a half, 2 years ago was basically maybe 12 to 15 to 17 range in Major League Baseball. You can now argue between top 3, top 5. I believe one of the writers in ESPN has him number 1, which is exciting to hear. I don't want to just jump on it because I'm a bias, but I do feel that's the consensus of a farm system. And when you add in, now he's getting his own players. We'll see what that really looks like. Is he one of those computer guys? We're going to find out because the Polanco's, the Simeon has the Gold Glove, run prevention. Polanco, I believe, is an 800 OPS, regardless how he hits from either side. Those are some of the guys that he likes. You have a guy like Nimmo with the long-term deal already kind of slowing a bit in the outfield. Like some of his projections and things are going slow. My concern then with Stearns at this point, not necessarily not handing out the huge contracts, but what is the direction of the team? Like a Polanco at first. Okay, Simeon's a glove at second. I guess he's going to trust Beatty, which I guess makes me semi-happy because I believe in Beatty. The outfield looks very chaotic. You can't have Tyrone Taylor be the starting center fielder. So I'm worried about the immediate direction for 2026, but I like the overall direction that Stearns is putting this team in, which, by the way, the entire season imploded. And as I've joked online and on my show, this is the first back-to-back over 500 seasons for the Mets since 2015, 2016. So it's been 10 years since they've been this good in the win-loss record. I know no one wants to hear it because of the collapse, but hello, winning is pretty important. We all want to win a World Series, but it's kind of nice to be over 500 every year, and they seem to be on track with that. And I honestly believe David Stearns can field a team that can go 5-10 more years over 500, first things first.
And building a consistent winner is important because this is a franchise that is the king of make the playoffs, then miss the playoffs for 8 years. Like, and I get it. It's not as fun maybe making it every year but not winning, but it's more fun than one fun run and then collapsing and then missing and then, being over 500 but missing. Like, you want a consistent perennial playoff team, and that's kind of what the Dodgers built, and now they've turned that perennial playoff team into a championship team every year. Now, once you become a winner, more people are going to want to come there. But when you're a dysfunctional mess, as the Mets were in 2025, on and off the field and in that clubhouse, maybe people will want to come there, but you're going to have to offer them top dollar. Like, they probably had to overpay a little bit for Jorge Polanco. Like, he's probably not a $20 million a year player, but they had to throw a couple extra million a year to secure him. So, yeah, you got to put together a winner, and they've put together a top farm system. The long-term looks great. I understand the short term right now doesn't look great, but it's also, and everyone's like, pitchers and catchers are only 6 weeks away. 6 weeks is a long time. Spring training is still 8 weeks away, or like it's still in this offseason and how this offseason is going is still a whole lot of time. So we don't know what date. Everyone's like, I need to move. I need to move. It's like you need that adrenaline. Like you just need the crack in you. But like they need bodies too. Like they need bodies, obviously. So it's going to be fascinating. One of those bodies you mentioned, and we just mentioned Carson Benge. You look at him being the Mets opening day, assuming they get an outfielder. You mentioned Tyrone Taylor, who I agree he's not a starter. He's a fourth outfielder. Do you look at Carson Benge being, March 27th, Citi Field, Paul Skeens versus maybe Nolan McLean, and Carson Benge is manning center field?
Realistically, no. I don't realistically see Carson Benge going the Pete Alonso route. The thing about I can't some of the differences. Pete Alonso, I believe, had a lot more experience at bats at certain levels before he kind of had his thing and got the call up immediately of sorts. I don't really know. Benge is very kind of new still to pro ball, and when you go up 2-3 different levels in 1 year, you don't really want to just show up immediately and break camp in Queens. It's not something I necessarily see. The box scores do also speak for themselves. He started slow, jumping all the way to AAA, starting in A-ball. So he made the jumps all the way up. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate immediately in the offseason without games being played, and now he's ready. I would like to see him at least break camp back in Syracuse, but then we're also getting into, during these final weeks, who is there? Like, I'm okay with Tyrone Taylor is going to be around and maybe kind of step aside, maybe in whatever weeks. I'm okay with that. Maybe there's the idea of, do they sign one of these 1 year guys? It seems like they keep getting linked to some of these outfielders that are okay, which probably mean they're going to get a 1 year deal for some of these glove first outfield veterans. So overall, though, I would prefer he does not break camp. But in my opinion, if any rookie breaks camp, it would have to be between Carson Benge and the reliever Dylan Ross would be my projectable guys that at least have a shot realistically out of camp.
So what's the date you put on Benge? Is it Memorial Day? Is it Cinco de Mayo? Is it Flag Day? Is it 4th of July? Is it post All-Star break? Like how much time, it obviously could depend on injuries and everything as well. But what would your timeline look like if it's not opening day?
I mean, without injuries, to give a random number, I know years ago it used to be a thing like get these guys 400 ABs at every level. He's nowhere near that right now, but maybe in 2026, if he can get to like the 100 at bat mark and just see where he's at, see how the projections are going, see how the power is going, see how he's spraying the ball, because Carson Benge is more of a spray the ball kind of guy. He's not Michael Conforto, but he's a Conforto type guy that's going to show a lot of power into the gap between left and center. That's going to be his thing, along with being able to barrel it. He can still pull the ball, but that's the kind of guy we're looking at projection-wise. But I would like to see him get his feet wet again, back in AAA, see what the K rate looks like, because it's always been pretty good either way. I just want to get him maybe a nice even 100, kind of feel things out. So without injuries, after that point, let's see when he's ready to, for better or worse, take somebody's job. Again, might be Tyrone Taylor's.
You like him in center field? Does he portray being a really good center fielder? Do you like him more in left? What do you think?
I mean, I'm still seem to be differing from a lot of fans online, but I'm trying to utilize some information I have, even talking to even teammates, other staff in the Mets organization. I feel that he can handle center field. If that's going to be his thing for the next 10 years, no idea. But I feel that he can play center field in 2026 for the New York Mets if that's where they need him. But a lot of the talk is about Carson Benge's arm, which obviously translates to left field, right field. So some of those guys like that could be the thing. Like even the guy we lost to the Giants, one of his things was, again, he can handle center field, but he might even be better in the corners. I can believe the same thing for a guy like Carson Benge. I'm not going to deny that. But my understanding, you can leave him in center field and he will do just fine. He won't be a negative run guy that I'm aware of defensively in any of the metrics. I think he'll hold his own there. So why not put him there if that's where the need is going to be?
You're watching Mets Daily. He's Ernest Dove. I'm Jake Brown, at Jake Brown Live, at Ernest Dove. Subscribe to YouTube, subscribe to ours, smash that thumbs up on this video, keep on commenting. We'll read your comments on tomorrow's show. It's Monday, January 5th. We're recording this Sunday night. So if anything happens overnight, which, if Sleepy Stearns is asleep, then nothing will happen. I'm hoping nothing happens because I got a 6 a.m. Amtrak to New York City, so I don't want to have to re-record this show. Plus, you have a life and work and a job, so I have a job now. So we hope that nothing happens, and we hope something happens tomorrow, which would be great, and we'll react to it on Tuesday's show. Okamoto going to the Blue Jays, 4 years, $60 million. Do you think the Mets should have been in on him at all?
I mean, I keep wavering back and forth on all these guys. The only real report that I truly had behind the scenes is that the Mets were never really truly interested big time in Ime, the pitcher. So I already knew he was not going to be an option, even when it was flooding online. I personally do, privately to publicly, I stated it wasn't happening, so don't worry about it. But for the hitters, I see, where does certain things fit in now? How did that translate? You see how you try to translate the arms. The Dodgers love to do it one way or another. Senga started off slow, ended up great rookie year. So minus the injuries, he translated pretty well, pretty fast. But for the bats, that's a much different story. So what happens if a guy like this, if he doesn't hit 30 to 35 home runs, if his K rate is high and his home runs are in the 20s and his batting average is low 200, you know what's going to happen in Mets fandom. So it'll be an absolute nightmare, especially on a multi-year deal. So I wasn't too kind of semi-concerned about missing out on either of the first base, third base option guys from Japan. But I also believe, we could even talk about it again, prospect-wise, I don't know if necessarily the Mets' future first baseman is in the Mets organization. We do have some, but honestly, truly, for 2026 only, I can still kind of make the case for a guy like Vientos being on the roster over both of those guys offensively. That would be my hot take, my ongoing belief in the 2024 playoff hero. I believe he loves to shine in those moments. If he got 600 ABs on another team, if you alluded to he gets traded, I believe he could be really, really good. So I'm not truly worried about missing out on the bats. And again, pitching, I wasn't expecting it to begin with, so I already knew that wasn't happening.
So you think Mark Vientos is you think the Mets have, to me, he'd be maybe the first guy to ship out of town, Ernest, just because I just think he's too one-dimensional. He's slow as molasses, doesn't play defense. When he's not hitting homers, what is he? He's a singles hitter, occasional doubles. He doesn't have speed. You can put him at third and first. You're not going to like what you see. And his on-base is not good either. He's not a guy that walks a lot. So you think Vientos sticks around and maybe is this team's DH?
Well, that's the thing now. For these weeks, my ongoing thought is, are we going to show up even in spring training with Mark Vientos and Luis Angel Acuna wearing Mets jerseys in spring training? I still kind of don't see it because of Polanco and Simeon. I'm already worried at this point. Are they going to go ahead and trade Jet Williams? Because I've had a recent show. I predicted, projected, guessed, if there were top prospects that are not going to make camp for the Mets organization, I'm guessing Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat for a couple of different reasons. But I feel like some of those guys, along with Vientos and Acuna, and of course Mauricio, the illustrious, the myth, the legend, all of those names, I don't really see realistically. Do you go to spring training with all of them still in Mets uniforms? I don't know why, because what would be the point? We all talk about depth, but that's more for pitching and guys with options. But Mauricio is the only one of this group with options. So what are you going to do with Vientos? He could be a much different version of Marte on the bench, but he can still have a role, even with Simeon and Polanco. I can have him be in that Marte role, but instead of sprinkling in outfield, he'll sprinkle in first base and third, which is still helpful to the team. Even though a Polanco, I guess you can throw him out there at third when Beatty rests here and there, depending on Acuna. So I do honestly think there's room for Vientos, but not for him and Acuna. For those two specifically, how do you break camp with the two of them on the 26th man? I don't see it.
You can. And, something tells me that Stearns does not like Acuna, the outlook of him, the way he speaks about him. It just feels he's not a Stearns guy. Maybe they don't like that he's, almost live streams more than he plays baseball. He's always on either TikTok live or Instagram live. Like, I don't care, but maybe they don't like that. Maybe they don't like the personality. The whole thing about Lindor saying, he got a little careless in some ways. I don't know. It does feel like a couple of them are gone. To me, not just because of options. I think Ronnie Mauricio, he got screwed last year. I mean, the guy sat on a roster with a year without at-bats, then gets 2 weeks of at-bats in AAA, gets called up, and then never plays. It just wasn't fair to him, and I get it. He looked awful on the right side of the plate, but when you go a year without hitting professional pitching, it's not easy to just come back in there in this, in the swing of things and be great again. So I also think the positional versatility, I think he's better defensively than obviously Mark Vientos. Acuna is better defensively, but only seems to have power in winter ball and not the major leagues. I mean, he hit like 3 homers in a week in winter ball. So it's going to be fascinating to see how that dynamic plays out. Jet Williams is another guy you mentioned. I agree. Like, he feels like he's in every rumored trade that goes out there. Jet Williams is in it. Like, if you're going to get Scooble, Jet Williams. You're going to get Sandy Alcantara, Jet Williams. Now, the latest name is Edward Cabrera, that the Mets and Yankees are interested in trading for him, which, to me, if that's your offseason starting pitching addition, incredibly underwhelming. I just think solid pitcher, really a number 3 or 4, has not been an innings eater, and what you're looking for this offseason is an innings eater. Is Jet Williams the guy you trade for Edward Cabrera? And if not Edward Cabrera, is there a name you're like, I would put Jet Williams in a package for him?
Well, see, that's the thing. I saw some of the stuff online and no idea who's the one posted it at this point. But when someone names some random names and prospects in the Yankees farm system, based on those names and where they're ranked in the Yankees farm system, which, again, bias or no bias, the Yankees have a bottom 10 farm system. So if you're guys who are barely ranked in the top 10, top 20, and those are the guys you're offering for Cabrera, that would mean that the Mets can basically probably trade 2 guys in the 10 to 20 something range to equal it. So you wouldn't even have to trade a Jet at all to get a guy like that. If the equivalent things being thrown out there in the last 24 hours from the Yankees, they're not going to really need it. You may have to go to the next level behind. Now, I am still really excited about a Will Watson, but you may offer up an arm like a Will Watson and then go further down the prospect list. So maybe like an RJ Gordon, a really solid pitching prospect, but maybe further down the line with the bats, way below, another tier below Jet Williams, if some of the rumored names from the Yankees are even true. But other than that, I can come up with names. But I think, honestly, a lot of the stuff, even I'm bringing it up, the thing about Jet Williams, the reason why a lot of people are probably naming Jet Williams in every trade is because of his defensive abilities or capabilities. That could be the thing where if he's not a true run prevention guy, that could spark the idea everyone has. Well, maybe Stearns is not going to be wanting him as one of his guys because of his defensive ability, even though I've seen some national publications kind of giving him some praise, Jet Williams, for kind of improvements defensively with a strong arm either way. He's kind of like got the Vientos arm, maybe Vientos defense of sorts. But they felt that there was some improvements in the middle infield for him. So if they believe it, do the Mets organization believe it?
Where would he play, though? Because you have Semien and you have Lindor. Could he play outfield well enough for the Mets if they threw him in left field?
I mean, he's technically played center field. He doesn't really make errors in center field. Now we're going to get into the other stuff. People who watch a lot of games in the minor leagues watch a lot of Jet Williams like a hawk. How does he track the ball? I don't think he's like Tim Tebow out there. He's a lot better than Tim Boy, but tracking the ball, everything else like center field. He's not a Morabito in center field. He's not an AJ Ewing in center field. So he's not a Carson Benge in center field. It's a spot like in Acuna where you can shove him out there during a game in Queens. But as an everyday player, my ongoing understanding, I feel Jet Williams would be best suited at second base. But again, depending on who gets traded, if they eventually trade in Acuna, you may sit on Jet Williams in Syracuse, and you may need to have a guy like this get called up to actually be the backup shortstop, depending on what else is going on at second and center. You can create a utility Jeff McNeil role for him. But again, if you start calling him up and he sits like an Acuna, sits like a Mauricio, we're going to be doing this all over again. But a guy like Jet Williams, he might get on base a lot more than Acuna and Mauricio because of the walks. So you don't want to stunt the growth of a Jet Williams, but if you call him up to be a utility backup, he can kind of fill the role better than those guys, in my opinion, in 2026.
Another player you mentioned in a potential trade would be Brandon Sproat. Now, to me, it feels inevitable that one of Sproat or Tong goes. Who would you rather? Obviously, you don't want either of them traded, but if you had to trade one, who gets traded? Because to me, if you're keeping Sproat, he might or might not be in the rotation. If you're keeping Tong is 100% going to start in AAA unless he lights everyone's, asses off in spring training. He's incredible. But even then, there's just not a spot right now for him. And once they add a starter, there's definitely not going to be a spot for him. How do you see the Sproat-Tong conundrum ending come spring training?
Well, I mean, first, respectfully admitting my bias, having interviewed Jonah Tong. So I'll get that out there right away before I even speak so everybody knows. But I have been talking about what is the pitch command, even from college at UF, what is the pitch command for Brandon Sproat, who has a little bit of filthier stuff because he can go 98, he can go to 100, but what's he going to do over a 5-6 innings for 26, 30 starts a year? What is his walk rate going to be? With the right or wrong walk rate, I don't know what the future is of Brandon Sproat. And then again, with Jonah Tong, he's younger by multiple years. So, and my thing again with Jonah Tong is he does throw 4 pitches. Quattro, 1, 2, 3, 4. He has 4. How often is he going to throw all 4 in a game with command and consistency? That's going to determine if Jonah Tong is a future frontline starter or not. Is he an SP6-ish long man reliever with only 2 pitches that he can throw for strikes consistently? That's a possibility. Is there a ceiling of him being co-front runners with McLean for the next 10 years? In my opinion, yes. But again, how much can he throw the slider and his curveball? By the way, Jonah Tong came into pro ball as a fastball curveball guy. Now all of a sudden he only throws a fastball change that he trusts the most. I mean, that's about player development, pitch use. The slider, I believe, might be the newest of the group, but he loves the kind of Vulcan change. I get it. But I just want him to get back to the 12-6 curveball. I think he can throw all 4 in a game consistently. I do think he's the guy that I'm higher on when it comes to a Brandon Sproat. And again, I'm probably completely wrong on this, but I see a guy like Will Watson. We're going to have the Brandon Sproat argument next year about, are we going to worry about pitch command? Because he might have some of the filthiest stuff, if not the filthiest, of the next group behind the top 3. But it's going to be about pitch command for him, pitch command for Brandon Sproat.
Yeah, after McLean, Sproat, and Tong, the next rated Mets pitching prospects are, you need Will Watson, Jack Wenninger, who's also out there in trade proposals, Jonathan Santucci, who is out there in trade proposals if the Mets want to keep. Jonathan Pitaro is a name that people thought about, like in a Cabrera deal. Obviously, we saw a little bit of a cup of coffee of Jonathan Pitaro kind of out of nowhere where he made the leap and we didn't expect it. What do you think about those arms? Do you see them playing a role in 2026 or are they 2027 and beyond?
That's the other thing I've been talking about all winter. From my prospect perspective, the Mets, the math is not mathing. Even if they just picked up 3 random guys in the Rule 5, right? And in the Rule 5 minor league phase, they all go directly to the AAA roster. So they have 3 arms there. They just won the Binghamton title. Shout out again to the Binghamton Rumble Ponies. The entire pitching staff of that title-winning affiliate, the majority of them can't even get promoted to AAA. There's no room. So they already have too many arms as it is. But if I were to try to project who can even show up on AAA with enough room on their roster, number 1 has to be Jack Wenninger because he ate over 130 innings at the AA level. He has absolutely nothing to prove anymore at the level. It will be a complete waste of time if he repeated. So I would think Jack Wenninger, who, by the way, in my most recent video, I talked about Jack Wenninger. You can check it out on the Dove Report. He is a beast. I believe he could eat innings. Like if he was a guy a few years from now as a free agent, you'd be dreaming of signing him to the team to eat innings. That guy that'll give you 6 or 7 with a high K rate and do really well. He's really well against facing runners in scoring position. I think he's going to be a monster. Another guy behind him, we're going to talk about pitch command religiously, Jonathan Santucci, in my opinion, is going to be the replacement for David Peterson if he stays with the Mets organization. So that's the guy. He can throw 95 to 97. His fastball is elite. I would think it's better than David Peterson's, the fastball. I do really like his slider. At his best, Peterson has one heck of a slider. I think Santucci can get at that level of a slider. The idea behind Santucci, as with Atong, what's the third pitch that he's going to throw consistently in a game and trust it, which for Santucci is going to have to be the changeup. Depending on the player development of his changeup, there's your replacement. When David Peterson, by the way, seems like only yesterday, I think he's in the final year of his deal or of control years. So there's your replacement sitting there in the Mets organization. Behind them, you've got a guy like Zach Thornton. I, of course, love Zach Thornton. I've interviewed Zach Thornton. Zach Thornton throws the most strikes of anybody in the Mets organization in the farm system. So if you want a guy that throws strikes, that's the one you call up. I wouldn't be shocked if the Mets called up Zach Thornton for the pen. Because, again, you want a guy that's going to go in for 1-2 innings, and he'll throw 19 of 24 pitches for strikes. You're going to be looking for that out of your bullpen. So if you're going to rush a guy next time, this past year, count on a possibility of a guy like Zach Thornton getting rushed up for the pen, not even to start.
And a lefty, and a lot of the bullpen will depend on the health of A.J. Minter. If he comes, and no one's really talking about A.J. Minter. If he's back and healthy, A.J. Minter is one of the better relievers in baseball, but we have not seen him yet, so that's going to be intriguing. Interesting that you say, Santucci could be the Peterson replacement, because Peterson's a name that's come up as someone, should the Mets shed that $9 million and just trade him. He's got 1 year left. He clearly broke down in the second half after being an all-star. He had a great first half, kind of just, I think, ran out of steam in the second half. Good pitcher, but if you're not signing him when his control's up after this year, should you just get value for him now? And I think that will also depend on what do the Mets add. If the Mets go out and sign Framber Valdez, I would have to think they're very much looking to trade David Peterson. So then they're not going to have three lefties in the rotation. Not that that matters, but if you're going to sign a Framber and you go sign, say if you sign Tucker and Framber, which I think is a bit of a pipe dream, but I think the Mets have the money to get those guys. In order to get those guys, you're going to have to shed someone off the payroll, and Senga and Peterson are the two names. Do you see Senga sticking around? It feels like the Mets want no parts of Senga. What do you think about his future?
Well, see, no matter what the Mets do this winter, my ongoing forever concern is, what are you trusting in Senga and Minaya? And I love Minaya. I love the idea of Senga. We can't just forget that 2023 never happened. But what are we going to do if these guys fall apart again in 2026? So that's the thing. Like, even if they do acquire someone, even if it's Peralta, Valdez, Cabrera, I kind of wish they would get Sandy Alcantara, but I'm sure maybe he's just off limits again.
A lot of money too. A lot of money.
But
not a lot, but he's $17 million a year. Cabrera is like $5 million, so the Mets are thinking. But Alcantara is the much more impact pitcher, a guy who's going to eat innings over Edward Cabrera.
Yeah, but I kind of wonder too, with one of those computer guys like a Stearns, I really don't know yet. What does he think of Senga? He may pitch every 6 days, hopefully. In the dugout, he has to practice throwing. Even in the off season, he does his own thing. In spring, he does his own thing. Maybe he's rehabbing. Maybe he needs this. You got to ask him what he needs more than the organization and the medical staff. It just seems very confusing with Senga, who, when he's healthy, no issues in his own mind, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. Like, you have to have him as a legit SP2, at least in any team in baseball, when he's kind of right. But he may not be a Stearns guy, because you probably want guys with the analytics, computers, which may also include pitching every 5th day, which is you're going to need from your rotation. So unless you're the Dodgers and you don't care and you have 12 pitchers, the Mets are in a state where they got to rely on these guys. So even if they sign a starter, I'm always going to worry about the entire season if Senga and Minaya are there with Peterson, because can all three of them go over 20 starts? Is that realistic?
And I've always said Senga's would be an indoor pitcher. Like, send him somewhere indoors, whether it's Arizona or Houston. And a trade that makes some sense to me. Now, if the Mets were still thinking about first, which they don't seem to be, is Christian Walker for Kodai Senga. And, sending Senga, Houston, good weather. He's not going to worry. Just like he pitched in Japan, he had so much success indoors. I feel like Houston could be an interesting spot. From Arizona, I thought if you were going to do a Ketel Marte trade, which doesn't seem like it'll happen anymore, you do Ketel Marte for Senga and prospects, but Senga indoors. So, Senga for Christian Walker, just a deal I'm going to throw out there. $20 million a year for Christian Walker. Maybe they eat $5 million a year for the Mets. The money matches up. Senga's got 2 years for 30. Walker's got 2 years for 40. Maybe Mets sign Valdez, and they have Valdez and Christian Walker, and then they get an outfielder. So something to keep an eye on, something to keep an ear on. Other prospects I want to talk about is the guy I mentioned earlier, Ryan Clifford. I look at Ryan Clifford as, the Mets' first baseman in 2027. What about you?
I mean, I swear he's another version of an enigma like a Ronnie Mauricio. I feel like we're always going to think about it. Using bad comps because they're Mets-centric, why not? I mean, is he going to be our next Lucas Duda to kind of think about and praise and worry about at the same time year-round? Maybe. I think we have our new Lucas Duda 2.0, another version of an Ike Davis, some hybrid of Ike Davis and Lucas Duda. I think that's what we have in Ryan Clifford. But again, some of the metrics are behind him. So he may be a Stearns guy, even though Stearns didn't acquire him, I don't believe. So, but he might be one of those guys. He hits the ball extremely hard. He hits the ball like Mauricio. When he makes contact, it's over 100 miles an hour most of the time. He's going to hit the bombs. He's probably going to hit 40 home runs as an absolute ceiling. The question's going to be, is he Joey Gallo, but without Joey Gallo's glove? If he becomes a home run, maybe some doubles, a walk, and K guy in the major leagues. That would be my thing. That's my concern. I'm a very old man. I'm sure I'm older than you. I believe in batting average, and he's a guy that's basically hit in the 230s his entire minor league career, while also being among the youngest at every level as a high school draft pick, I believe. But we're now sitting here as he's getting into his very early 20s, hitting 230 everywhere, all the way to AA, AAA. How does that project at the major league level? We could talk about Ronnie Mauricio spending those 2 weeks in AAA where he hit like 450. So is Ryan Clifford going to hit 300 this year in Syracuse? If he does, I agree with you. Let him do his thing. He'll break camp 2027. I'm happy. But that's what I'm going to worry about is batting average and K rate with Ryan Clifford, because at his ceiling, he's probably even better than a Lucas Duda as a ceiling.
I don't love the comparisons there because I don't have great memories of Lucas Duda, to be honest with you. So those don't make me feel that much better about Ryan Clifford.
I mean, we can get into huge names like Adam Dunn. Is he going to be an Adam Dunn? What's the projectable thing? Like almost future Hall of Fame guys or guys that can go for 40 and 100 RBIs every year while hitting 200. I mean, that still has a lot of value even in today's baseball. So, and again, Joey Gallo, but Joey Gallo is a really solid above average elite outfielder. He's not known to be an elite defensive player in general. So I know he can play corner outfield, but you might have basically Lucas Duda playing left field with a guy like Ryan Clifford. So he has to be a first baseman, in my opinion. I believe he can succeed and thrive. I believe some of the underlying metrics say he's doing a lot of things right when he's on. And he's a streaky guy. You're going to have to get used to that as well. He could be one of those Pete Alonsos that goes 2 weeks without hitting, and then he's hitting 400 for 2 weeks. He may do that as well because he's been doing it in the minors with the Mets.
Yeah, I mean, you look at his numbers, they're fascinating because he's a very high on base. Like his on base over 120 points for his career, higher in the minors than his average. But he does strike out at Pete Alonso rates. He strikes out around 150 times a year. So walks a lot, but also strikes out a lot. And he's coming off a 29 and 93 year in 139 games. So he could be a 30 homer guy consistently. But like you said, is he going to strike out 150, 200 times? That could be a concern. So that's a fascinating thing for the future. You know, to me, I want for the next 2 years Yandy Diaz to be my first baseman. But, you know, the Mets and Rays have done business before many times. It just feels like a match made in heaven. He's $12 million this year. He's $13 million next year. He's still at the top of his game, even at 34 years old. I know people point to his age. To me, it's very simple. Get Yandy Diaz. You platoon Yandy and Polanco between DH and first. You trade Vientos, and then you go get your outfielder and your starting pitcher. But we haven't heard Yandy's name come up. Or, you see me tweet about it. Are you a Yandy Diaz guy at all?
I mean, those numbers are pretty darn impressive, regardless of his age. Especially again, if you have him under control for like the year or two, that's fine. I would always worry about the Rays, although I think we could always say we won the Rayleigh trade, so we don't always get destroyed in certain trades. I would always worry if the Rays are involved. I'm sure they're going to ask for certain guys. They'll probably ask for a pitcher who will make the All-Star team with them within a year. So I'd be worried with whoever goes to the Rays is probably going to be on the All-Star team. That would be my fear immediately, especially if they go with an arm. They'll know how to best utilize the arm for 4 to 5 innings somehow. But he would be a really good player. Might be one of the best options in my mind for the rest of the winter. I don't know about Walker, the higher money, here and that, whatever the situation. But Yandy might be the best of the bunch as far as who's left. That would be fascinating. But then again, either way, you make moves like that, now you're parting with Vientos and Acuna again, one way or another.
He's a righty bat, and the Mets want a righty bat. There's your guy right there. Going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. Dylan Ross, the name you mentioned, I look at him as a guy who makes the team on opening day. He was on the roster the last game of the season. We know how fast he throws. We know he throws 3 figures. Do you look at Dylan Ross as having an impact on the Major League Mets bullpen in 2026?
I mean, one way or another, I think he's going to make an impact because of the inevitable that happens with pitching regardless. We just saw it last year with a nice record being broken by the Mets. And I believe that the only reason why he wasn't always the reason why he wasn't pitching bulk innings already last year while he was jumping levels. Here's the thing. Ross had missed a lot of time from when he got drafted. So he's not old, but I believe he might be 24 at least, 24, 25 at this point. And that's because in pro ball, he's been missing time for multiple years. So he was jumping multiple levels at this point while finally healthy. That's probably one of the, like a Carson Benge, different levels of things, pitcher hitter, but he had to go through multiple kind of levels at the same time. The concern for Dylan Ross is going to, again, be pitch command. He might drive you crazy. But again, he has some really good numbers. I was mentioning the numbers in my latest video. He's really strong with runners in scoring position. He had like 54 innings and 80 strikeouts in those 54 innings. So he pretty much dominates. Everybody hits about under 200 against him, opponent batting average. Is he going to throw enough strikes? If he throws enough strikes, he's an 8th, 9th inning guy. Although you're not really breaking camp with him taking Diaz's spot or Devin Williams, but he's a 7th, 8th inning guy during the 2026 season if he's at his best. Legit. If he can get that 97 to 100 with his splitter, with enough pitch command, he's a high leverage, like maybe even a better, stronger version of a Reed Garrett when Reed Garrett at his healthiest. He could be a Reed Garrett when Reed Garrett has been his best with the Mets. That's my version of a Mets kind of centric comp between those two guys and what they can contribute to the Mets bullpen, even as soon as 2026.
A name that I'm reading about for the bullpen recently is just pitching well in winter ball. You know anything about Jeffrey Yan, this lefty that everyone's talking about now?
Well, I mean, there's always guys doing well. They have Severino, Yan. They're both doing fantastic in winter ball. I always worry about that. One of my favorite pitchers, every year he's like the MVP-looking pitcher in winter ball. I believe it's Luis Moreno, and he always still struggles with command and stuff in the Mets affiliate stateside. So I love the idea of certain guys like that. Like even my guy, Saul Garcia, I've been hyping him all winter because he's doing well in winter ball, but he's throwing strikes in winter ball. If he could repeat that, Saul Garcia is going to be a future Jerry's Familia, in my opinion. I don't know if he'll ever throw enough strikes, but winter ball looks good. Yan looks great. Acuna's doing really well for his winter ball, but I guess a lot of people are complaining the competition level, affiliate related wise, the comps are pretty low. So he's not really facing, AAA level kind of hitters. So that's why people aren't excited. But no, I heard about Yan. I heard about Severino. My guy is Saul Garcia, who's doing well in winter ball, but there's only so much you can do. But I do like the fact that they're doing well in tough competition. And they had that Alzolay, right, coming back from his injury. So those are guys that can take the spots of guys like a Dylan Ross out of camp. If they're all healthy, one or two of those guys can take those final spots. And I'd be okay if Benge and Ross and a Jet Williams, no matter what they do in spring, it's okay if they all go to AAA and join the Syracuse Mets All-Star team, but because they're going to be needed one way or another throughout the year.
We could talk ball for hours. We're already 45 minutes in. This might be the longest Mets Daily of all time, so we'll wrap it up here. But before we go, anyone we haven't mentioned that you're thinking about, talking about prospect-wise, or someone the Mets should go after before we wrap up the show?
Again, other names to think about for your show, because I do mention them a lot on mine and even on social media. Another more random pen arms that you might see behind Dylan Ross. We're talking Ryan Lambert, who might be more of an unknown guy to a lot of fans. Ryan Lambert could be another high leverage reliever. A couple of other arms. One of my guys I interviewed last season, Brett Banks. Brett Banks is now healthy. He started off slow last year. You have Brett Banks, Ryan Lambert, and there's a guy named Ben Simon, who I'm told by the end of last year, Ben Simon was getting back to 99 miles an hour with his fastball. So those are some of the younger arms that are going to be in AA, AAA to break camp. So if they get called up, those are the other names to think about from a prospect perspective. But again, other names in free agency, I'm not really hearing a lot of stuff. When I keep trying to poke my head in about Valdez, I get a lot of silence. And I want to try to kind of see if that means something may be brewing, but I don't have any truth to it. I'm just guessing. Sometimes I get info. Sometimes I get complete silence, and I start thinking about it if it's going to happen later. But some of the other names, Ketel Marte was never happening. I was told that was completely fake to begin with. So some of the bigger names weren't true at all. So now I'm just trying to see. Outfielder, will they get an arm? But again, there's lots of options in the minor league system. It's easy and happy for me if they go all youth in 2026. I know that's not going to make the fans happy, but going forward, when guys inevitably start getting injured, I think the Mets are going to start calling up top 30 prospects rather than waiver wire guys in 2026. That's my projection of sorts as well.
So what you're saying is Francis Romero makes up a lot of baloney reports, like we could tell. It did feel weird because you're like, where's he going to play? Now, listen, he's played the outfield. You could throw him in left field. I mean, Jeff McNeil could play left. I think Ketel Marte could play left field. It's not like the hardest position on the diamond, but that definitely came out of left field, no pun intended, that report coming out there. So that's intriguing. AJ Ewing, quickly. We didn't mention him at all. Is he someone you can see in 2026? Is he someone that teams are talking about in a trade right now? What about AJ Ewing?
I was hearing last summer that teams like the Marlins were sniffing around, at least asking about AJ Ewing at the last deadline. He's one of those guys, speed demon. He hits over 300, looks fantastic. Talking with coaches from the last year or so, coaches said they like his plate discipline. They like his maturity. Teammates said he's a good guy. Someone spread this ridiculous rumor like he wasn't a good person. And I had teammates like, who was saying that nonsense? So I wish I can call those people out. But AJ Ewing is a good person. He's a good teammate, fantastic player. I think he stole about 70 bases last year. That'll tell you about the speed to go at 300. He had a 400 on-base percentage last year. The thing about him, I believe he's above a Morabito prospect and also ceiling-wise, but they may almost be a little similar. People are concerned about the power of AJ Ewing like they are with Nick Morabito. But my belief in my heart of hearts, I think AJ Ewing can progress and show enough power where he might actually be maybe the top prospect, top hitting prospect in the Mets organization by this time next year. Interesting.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, the stolen base number is what jumps out to me. Like any guy that's stealing 70 stolen bases, that's, one every other day is incredible. And the Mets need speed on the bases. So, it seems like you can play a few different positions. I'm intrigued to see. It's interesting you say about the Marlins, though, because you're talking about Edward Cabrera. Like, is it a package around Ewing to get a Cabrera, or could the Mets get Sandy Alcantara? A Vientos, Ewing, and someone else, and an Acuna for an Alcantara. That would be fascinating as well to see how that all plays out. He's Ernest Dove. Check out the Dove Report on YouTube. Go subscribe there now. Follow him on Twitter at Ernest Dove. Follow me at Jake Brown Live. Follow the show at Mets Daily Show. Smash that thumbs up in this video. Comment. We'll read your comments on tomorrow's show. Keep in subscribe as we're around 3,300 right now. Happy New Year, everyone. Ernest, thank you so much. Well, we got to do it more often. I think we had you on once or twice. We should do it every 6 to 8 weeks. I feel like a check-in with you. Great stuff as always. Appreciate your support of the channel. We love your channel, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Yeah, be on the lookout for some of my future shows and segments and episodes. There's a very quiet, top pitching prospect camp that's about to occur in the next couple of weeks in Port St. Lucie. So I hope to provide some kind of quiet, wonderful, productive information from that camp where some of the top arms in the Mets system are going to be showing their thing. I'll be giving you guys some of the details when it happens.
Love it. Well, I might come down to spring training for a couple days or a week. So if you're down there, we'll have a beer at Duffy's. Get a couple of bowling lanes and a couple of beers at Duffy's or Applebee's. There's not much else to do around there, but love a trip to PSL, a trip to the beach, trip to the pool. Nice warm weather, a break from this New York cold. We will talk to you tomorrow. Thanks to Ernest Stubb for joining us. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Mets Daily.